Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I've had this job at a gym where I work the night shift until 6 in the morning. My co-worker and I handle all the cleaning, paperwork, and sometimes we help the day shift when they forget to log something. My manager really appreciates us because we keep the place running smoothly. I should mention that I have a service dog who comes to work with me. I have severe PTSD and autism, so she's essential for me to function. Corporate approved everything, human resources signed off on it, and management knows about it. She's a good girl, always stays under the counter at the front desk, unless she needs to alert me to something or just wants to stretch her legs a bit. She wears this big vest that clearly says service dog on it, so it's pretty obvious what she is. About 2 years ago, something happened that still makes my blood pressure spike when I think about it. It was a regular night shift. My co-worker and I were handling the usual stuff when this woman walked into the gym. She came straight up to the front desk and started yelling at me, accusing me of stealing money from her son. I was completely caught off guard. I had no idea what she was talking about, so I asked her to explain what she meant. My service dog was still under the counter, not reacting at all because there was no real threat, just a very angry woman. She went on to explain that I was charging her son a yearly fee, and in her mind, that was theft. I told her I understood her concern and that I would pull up his account to explain everything. I got into our system and brought up her son's membership documents. He was a regular member, came in all the time, nice guy. I could see the yearly fee charge clear as day. I explained to her that when her son signed up for his membership, he agreed to our terms. There was a yearly fee that all members paid if they were on the annual membership plan. We had to verbally explain this during sign-up, and it was also written in the contract. I turned the screen toward her so she could see his signed agreement. The yearly fee is standard practice. It's how we keep the membership costs lower throughout the year. Corporate automatically charges it unless someone calls to cancel their membership. She insisted she didn't care what the document said and that I was still stealing from him. While I was trying to explain all this, my service dog came out from under the counter to stretch. She does this sometimes, especially during longer interactions. She wasn't doing anything threatening, just being a dog. Her vest was clearly visible. That's when everything went completely insane. The woman suddenly started screaming that my dog was attacking her and demanding that someone call the police. I tried to tell her that my dog wasn't attacking anyone, that she was a service dog and was just stretching, but the woman wouldn't listen. She kept screaming that she didn't care and that the dog was vicious, and she demanded we call the police immediately. My co-worker witnessed this whole thing. He immediately called the police because this woman was causing such a scene. I was trying to stay calm, but my hands were shaking. A few minutes later, 2 officers showed up. The woman rushed over to them before I could say anything. She told the officer that I had a dangerous dog that tried to attack her and that I was also stealing money from her son's account. The officer looked at me, then at my very calm service dog, who was now sitting quietly by my feet, and asked me to tell him what happened. I explained that this woman came in upset about a yearly membership fee that her son was charged. I told him it was a standard fee that all members agreed to when they signed up, and that I had shown her the documentation. I mentioned that while I was explaining everything, my service dog came out from under the counter to stretch. I made sure to explain that she was a registered service dog, approved by corporate and human resources, and that she didn't approach this woman or act aggressively at all. My co-worker jumped in and told the officer that he saw everything. He confirmed that the dog never went near her and had been calm this whole time. He also mentioned that we had security cameras that recorded everything. I pointed up at the camera above the front desk and told the officer that everything was on camera. The woman's face went completely pale. Then she just lost it. She started yelling that we were all lying and that the dog was dangerous and should be put down. She screamed that she would sue the gym and sue all of us. The officer's expression hardened. He clearly wasn't impressed with her behavior. The officer told her that she needed to calm down. He said that if necessary, they would come back and review the security footage, but right now she needed to leave the premises. I told him that our manager was usually here between 9 and 5 if he needed to come back for the footage. My co-worker added that we could have it ready for him. The officer thanked us and then told the woman that she was banned from this establishment until further notice and that she needed to leave with him. She screamed that he couldn't do this to her. He replied that he just did and told her again to come with him. He escorted her out while she continued screaming about how unfair everything was. After they left, I just stood there trembling. My co-worker gave me a reassuring pat on the shoulder and asked if I was okay. I told him I thought so, but that the whole situation was insane. The next day, our manager came in and my co-worker told him everything that happened. The manager immediately pulled up the security footage and watched the entire interaction. You could see everything clearly. Me explaining the fee, my service dog just standing there doing nothing, and this woman completely fabricating an attack. My manager called me later that day. He told me he had reviewed the footage and apologized that I had to deal with that situation. He said he'd made the decision to permanently ban her from the gym and that she wasn't welcome here anymore. I thanked him and told him I really appreciated it. He reassured me that I did everything right and that my dog did nothing wrong. He said some people were just looking for problems. A few weeks later, her son found out what she did and was absolutely mortified. He came in personally to apologize and switched his membership to a different location because he was so embarrassed. He told my co-worker that he had no idea his mother was going to do that and that he completely understood the yearly fee. That woman tried to get my service dog taken away from me over a legitimate charge she didn't bother to understand. She could have just asked questions like a normal person, but instead she chose chaos. And in the end, she got herself banned and embarrassed her own son. I'm a psychologist who works with people who have special needs and disabilities, helping them manage their behaviors and creating plans that give them structure. It's rewarding work, but these days it's gotten harder because I'm also dealing with my own health crisis. 2 years ago, I had surgery to remove cancer from my left inner thigh. That's why I walk with a cane now. The cancer came back in several places, so now I'm doing chemotherapy and radiation treatments a couple times a week. The treatments wipe me out, but I try to keep working because my patients need me. This whole mess started about a month ago. I had just finished one of my treatment sessions, which involves driving an hour each way to the facility. After treatment, I don't feel like leaving the house for days, so I decided to stop at the grocery store on my way home to stock up on essentials. I pulled into the parking lot and noticed one of those motorized scooters sitting out in the middle of the lot. I was exhausted from the radiation and chemo, and my leg was killing me. I have a handicap placard, though I only use the parking spaces when I really need them. On good days, I try to leave them for others who might need them more, but today wasn't a good day, and that scooter looked like a blessing. I parked, grabbed the scooter, and headed toward the store entrance. That's when I saw her. She was massive, maybe 5'8" and somewhere between 350 and 400 pounds. The moment I rolled up to the entrance, she looked straight at me with this expectant expression. She thanked me enthusiastically and said she'd been waiting for the scooter forever. I apologized and told her I was using the scooter because my leg was acting up and I just finished my radiation and chemo treatments. Her face changed completely. She looked at my cane, which was positioned right between my legs on the scooter, and her expression went from expectant to furious. She started yelling at me, saying I was too lazy, and asking how I dared not give a disabled person the scooter. I told her she seemed to be walking just fine and drove past her into the store. I had entered on the side with clothes and cosmetics since it was closest to where I'd parked, but I needed to get to the food section. That's when I realized she was following me. She kept yelling when I made my way to the very back of the store. I drove down the back aisle toward the food section, and she was right behind me the entire time. She kept telling me she couldn't walk, that I was a jerk for not giving her the scooter, and that I was faking my condition. I ignored her and kept going. When I reached the dairy section, she was still behind me, yelling and carrying on. I grabbed what I needed and moved to the next aisle, then the next one. I was hoping she'd eventually give up and leave me alone. That's when everything escalated. I felt someone grab my left arm and yank hard. Next thing I knew, I was standing upright, pulled off the scooter. I had to grab my cane quickly to keep from falling over completely. She had physically removed me from the scooter. She was still yelling at me, demanding I get off because the scooter was hers. Something in me snapped. Maybe it was the exhaustion from treatment. Maybe it was the pain, or maybe it was just the sheer audacity of this woman assaulting me. I grabbed her hand and twisted it behind her back, forcing her face first onto the floor. I put my cane across her back while holding her arm. I yelled at her as loud as I could, calling her a fat cow and telling her she wasn't handicapped, just fat and lazy. I pointed out that she'd just followed me through half the store. I told her I worked with people with disabilities and not one of them acted entitled like she did. I suggested that maybe if she didn't go to the all-you-can-eat buffet for every meal, she might lose some weight and wouldn't feel entitled to use what she didn't actually need. I'll admit, I regret how I said that. But in that moment, after being assaulted, I wasn't thinking clearly. That's when two security guards approached us. They'd been following us since her nonsense started at the front of the store. One of them asked if he could give me a hand up. He helped me back onto the scooter. I expected her to start crying or claiming I'd assaulted her, but no. She was livid, threatening to rip my head off and kill me. She claimed she'd never been so insulted in her life and that no one had ever disrespected her like this before. One of the security guards had already called the police when she grabbed me. The two guards stood between us while we waited because she was legitimately trying to get to me. When the officers arrived, they asked me to stay seated and immediately put her in handcuffs after hearing her threats. The officers asked the security guards what had happened, getting more information from them than from either of us. The store manager showed up and took one of the officers to review the security footage. They were gone for about 15 to 20 minutes. When they came back, they read her rights. She used them and stayed quiet, which shocked me. I wasn't asked if I wanted to press charges. I'm guessing the store did it themselves. The manager apologized repeatedly and gave me 50% off my purchase plus a gift card for $250. He asked for my name and address before she was taken away. 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail with a court date. She'd been charged, and I had to testify in November. Yesterday was the court date. She was found guilty of harassment, abuse, and disorderly conduct. This was her third offense. She already had a record for harassing seniors and handicapped people. She'd been banned from multiple stores and restaurants. They played the security footage in court, showing everything from when I entered the store to when police arrested her. The judge watched without expression. She sat in the courtroom and didn't say a word throughout most of the proceedings. Her lawyer tried to use her weight as an excuse for her actions and had the nerve to tell the court that if I was a true gentleman, I would have given her the scooter and there never would have been an issue. The judge, prosecutor, and I all just stared at him like he was insane. The judge asked about my medical condition, and I explained everything about my cancer, surgery, and ongoing treatments. He apologized to me for what she'd put me through. Then he asked what I did for a living. When I told him I was a psychologist and behavior specialist working with people with special needs and disabilities, he asked if I thought she needed a behavior plan and counseling. I chuckled and told him I thought she needed to learn how to treat people and understand that people would treat her the way she treated them. The judge smiled at that. He sentenced her to 18 months in jail with mandatory service of the full sentence, 2 years probation, and counseling that would start in jail and continue until a counselor deemed she was no longer a threat to people. He told her the counseling would continue until he saw fit to end it. He also told her this was her one and only chance to get her act together. She kept looking at me with pure hatred when he passed sentence. I just smiled at her. When the judge finished, he seemed to notice her looks toward me and asked if I wanted to add anything. I politely stood up and smiled at her. I told her first that I wasn't the one who pressed charges. Second, I said I hoped she understood that no matter how entitled she thought she was, there were people in this world with real issues and health problems. I explained that under the Disabilities Care Act, Her actions had created the mess she was in because it was easier for her to harass people instead of asking for help or doing things for herself. I told her I helped people for a reason, and that my phone was on for my patients 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I said I had no hard feelings toward her, and that if she would accept my offer, I'd be willing to work with her at no cost to help her improve herself in her life. She gave me a huge smile and then told me to screw off. The judge sat back in his chair, smiling from ear to ear. He asked her to stand up and told her he'd changed his mind about his ruling. She would now serve 36 months with no early release, 5 years probation, and would see a psychiatrist weekly until he found her fit to be a member of society. She was led away, still looking at me with all the hatred in the world. Oh well. My parents and I have lived in our house for about 10 years now, and for most of that time things were pretty peaceful. Our street was quiet, everyone minded their own business, and we all got along well enough. Then this guy moved in next door about 3 years ago, and everything changed. From day one, he made it clear he didn't care about anyone but himself. He blasted music late at night, let his garbage bins overflow onto the sidewalk, and glare at us whenever we passed by. My dad tried being friendly when he first moved in, even offered to help him move some furniture when he was settling in, but the guy just grunted and shut the door in his face. My mom said we should just ignore him, and maybe he'd calm down eventually. She was wrong about that. The parking situation on our street isn't great. There aren't assigned spots or anything, but everyone kind of has their usual place they park. We'd always parked right in front of our house since we moved in. It just made sense. But this guy decided that spot should be his, even though there was plenty of space in front of his own house. The real trouble started a few years ago on a regular Tuesday evening. My parents and I were coming back from the grocery store, and we could see our usual spot was empty when we turned onto our street. My dad was already signaling to pull in when out of nowhere, this guy came speeding down the road like he was in some kind of race. He swerved right in front of us and jerked his car into our spot. My dad hit the brakes hard and we all lurched forward. My dad asked if he was kidding, clearly frustrated. He isn't usually one to lose his temper, but I could see his knuckles were white on the steering wheel. The neighbor got out of his car with this smug look on his face and asked what our problem was. My dad told him that was our spot and that he'd clearly seen us about to park there. The neighbor said he didn't see anyone's name on it and said it was first come, first served. My mom pointed out that there was a spot right in front of his own house and asked if he could just park there instead. He said he'd park wherever he wanted and that it wasn't his problem if we were too slow. He called us a few names I won't repeat here and walked into his house laughing. My parents looked at each other and I could tell they were both furious. But my mom took a deep breath and suggested we just park on the next street. She said we weren't going to stoop to his level. So that's what we did. We grabbed the groceries and walked the extra block home. Over the next couple of years, things only got worse. He started parking in our spot every single day, even when the spot in front of his house was empty. He'd yell insults at us whenever he saw us outside. One morning I went out to get the mail and found garbage scattered across our lawn. When I looked over the fence, I saw him standing in his yard with an empty trash bag, grinning at me. I asked him if he was serious about throwing trash in our yard. He just told me to prove it and kept grinning. He did this kind of thing all the time, throwing junk over our fence, making rude comments when we were trying to enjoy our backyard, playing loud music at 2 in the morning. My parents called the police a few times, but he'd always play innocent when they showed up, and without concrete proof there wasn't much they could do. Then came New Year's Eve about 2 years into this nightmare. My dad had managed to get his hands on some really good fireworks, the kind you're not exactly supposed to have, but everyone uses them anyway on New Year's. We set them up in our backyard after dark, and honestly, we were having the best time. The fireworks were amazing, lighting up the whole sky with colors. We'd been at it for maybe half an hour when he came storming out of his house. He asked what the hell was wrong with us and said we'd scared the life out of him. My dad pointed out that it was New Year's Eve and everyone was setting off fireworks. The neighbor complained that we weren't using normal ones and insisted ours were illegal. I asked him why he came outside if he was so scared. He didn't have an answer for that, just stood there sputtering. Eventually, he stomped back inside, slamming his door so hard I thought the frame might crack. In our family, we have this tradition where after we finish with the fireworks, we gather up all the packaging and leftover cardboard and have a little bonfire to end the night. It's fun, and it gets rid of all the mess at once. This year, my dad had a different idea. He started piling up the trash right next to the neighbor's car, which was parked in our spot like usual. My mom asked if he was sure about this. My dad said he was tired of being the bigger person. We lit the pile and stepped back to watch it burn. It was going fine at first, just paper and cardboard catching fire. Then the flames got bigger than we expected, and they started licking at the side of his car. Within minutes, the paint was bubbling and smoking. The neighbor came running out again and screamed about his car, accusing us of setting it on fire. My dad said we were just burning our trash like we always did. The neighbor said he was calling the police and that we were going to prison for this. He ran back inside, and sure enough, about 10 minutes later we heard sirens. 2 police officers showed up and the neighbor came out ranting about how we deliberately destroyed his property. The fire had done a real number on his car. The whole side was blackened and the tires had melted. One of the officers asked if we had set the fire. My dad explained that we were burning our fireworks packaging and that it was a family tradition. The neighbor insisted we did it on purpose and that we'd put the fire right next to his car. The officers asked if anyone else had complained about the noise or the fireworks. None of our other neighbors had called, and a few of them had actually come outside to watch. Then our neighbor from across the street, this really nice older lady who'd lived there for decades, walked over. She told the officers she'd seen the whole thing and explained that this man had been harassing our family for years. She said she wouldn't be surprised if he set his own car on fire just to get us in trouble. The neighbor said that was insane and asked why he would burn his own car. The nice neighbor said it was probably for attention and pointed out that he was always causing problems on the street. The officers looked at each other, then back at us. One of them said they'd file a report, but since no one else complained and there was no clear evidence of intent, they were just issuing us a warning. He told us to be more careful with fires in the future. They left, and the neighbor stood there staring at his ruined car. He couldn't drive it anymore, not with the damage it had. Last I heard, he's been riding his bike everywhere because he can't afford to fix it or buy a new one. The next day, my mom baked a huge chocolate cake and we brought it over to the nice neighbor who'd stood up for us. She was so happy and said she'd been waiting years for someone to put that guy in his place. We sat in her kitchen for over an hour just talking and laughing about the whole thing. The jerk next door still lives there, and he's still unpleasant. But at least now he has to ride his bike past our house every day while we park comfortably in our spot. He doesn't throw trash over the fence anymore either. I think having to pedal everywhere in the rain has taken some of the fight out of him. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.